Tonight I want to direct your attention to John chapter 5. It is a story that I'm sure you think you know. John chapter 5. And I think I can capture what we need beginning at verse 5. And here's what the Bible says. And a certain man was there, which had an infirmity 38 years. When Jesus saw him lie and knew that he had been now a long time in that case, he saith unto him, Wilt thou be made whole? The impotent man answered him, Sir, I have no man when the water is troubled to put me into the pool, but while I'm coming, another steppeth down before me. Jesus saith unto him, Rise, take up thy bed, and walk. I've lifted a few words from this text to entitle this message. I call it, I Have No Man. Would you pray with me? Father in heaven, tonight we open the scriptures, but we don't do it without asking first that the power of God would be dispensed into this place. I recognize that without Jesus, my voice would mean nothing. My language would be babbling. There would be no meaning whatever. And so I confess that any good word that has ever proceeded from my lips has come by the power of God. Now we trust thee, Father, for we need to hear from the Lord tonight. Speak to us, and our hearts shall be satisfied. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen. You have heard 25, 30 sermons on the pool of Bethesda. The name of the place is House of Mercy. I suggest to you that it's a strange thing to be called because the very story that we are about to read suggests that there is sometimes no mercy in a place called the House of Mercy. The Bible says there is this pool. I have been to the place where they say is the pool. You've got to be careful because even in the Holy Land, people are not always correct in what they say. But they took my wife and I to a place and we looked at it, and there we were looking at Jerusalem. The scholars are still arguing with each other. Is it the sheep gate? Is it the sheep market? Is it the sheep pool? Suffice it to say that at this pool, while you are there trying to be healed, you are exposed to the enterprise. You're not somewhere out in the woods. You can look up at Jerusalem and see what's going on there. So you're not isolated from the activity of healthy people, of wealthy people, of people who are blessed with health and movement. And so the Bible says at this place there are people gathered because they believe that an angel comes betimes and moves the water. I read a lot of scholarship on these things. I don't believe everything that I read, but it's interesting. One scholar says that this pool is fed by the stream of Siloam. That means that it might be part of an aqueduct that could cause surging in the water. Maybe the story that is told about this pool is somewhat askew. There are people who have said over and over again, in fact, reliable critics have looked at the Bible text and suggest to us that the part of verse 3 that talks about the moving of the water and all of verse 4 that says an angel moves the water was not in the original text. Some proactive scholar came and saw what was there and said, aha, we need to explain this. You know, the Bible is just about enough by itself.
That's right.
Doesn't really need much help. What do you say? But one of my favorite writers confirms that this whole story is not built on truth. It's built on a tale that is past. How many know that once you start a story, it gains momentum? There are some of us who have been at the wrong end of a story that gained momentum. Somebody tells a little tiny lie about you. But lies are so irresistible that everybody has to add a little bit of his or her personality to it. And by the time you hear it, it is gigantic. So I understand how it could be, but the fact is that perhaps there was a grain of truth at the beginning of the story. I read some things that were fantastic. They talked about what might have happened at the birth of Jesus, what might have happened at the building of the wall around Jerusalem, that some great event might have brought holiness to this land that seeped into the water. But I'll tell you what makes me suspicious. Jesus does not heal by choosing the one who needs it least. The story says that there are times, and I read very carefully, they said sometimes it might have been considered weekly, but probably less likely than every week. People were looking all the time. During the day, the place was crowded. Hundreds gathered there, and they watched for the water to move. People who could not walk to the pool would drag themselves to the pool. Those who had enough money or enough clout or enough connections had some people to come with them to be there when they needed to get to the water, because you were healed if you were first in the water, and therein lies my problem. Because if you got a migraine headache, you can get there first. If you have terminal cancer, if you are paralyzed, you are unlikely to get there first. God doesn't work that way. I have seen how God moves. There are times when he takes the most pitiful of cases. In fact, in this very passage, Jesus doesn't go down and say, who looks like they're almost healed? Who looks the healthiest? You know, I would almost be ready to put this whole thing down if Jesus operated in that fashion, that he chose the one who needed him least and healed them. I believe that in order to show his divinity, God often chooses the worst case. Because there are some cases that nobody thinks can be healed. I have a sermon that has as its major thesis that God sometimes waits until everybody says there's no hope. It can't be done. There's nothing that can be accomplished, and when everybody has signed off on the impossibility, then God steps in. Because God specializes, you know what the folks say, in things that are impossible. So I don't know whether you are willing to go with me or not, but I think I'm able to substantiate that this was not a story that was based on fact. You know that somebody might have gone there who had a psychosomatic illness. There are people who are ill, but it's not physical. Don't worry, I'm not going too far down that path. Some people will be annoyed with me. But the fact is that some people who are thinking they're sick, and if you think you're sick, you are. You can sit in your bed. You can lie there and be sick. You may not be sick, but if you think you are, you're sick. I know some people who have been sick for ages. No doctor has been able to verify it, but their illness seems palpable. It's in their heads. But could it have been that somebody whose illness was not physical but psychosomatic went down to the pool, saw it move, jumped in, got up and said, hey, I'm healed? And you know how that will take off. That's a story that has legs. It'll fly. So If it is true, and I believe that it is, that this story is based on an old wives' tale, if you will, and that people are waiting there because if you have no other hope, you will hope in anything. That's true. Incidentally, that's why I think Christians ought to speak up. I wish I had been the one who said it, but a gentleman wrote that everybody in society has come out of the closet except Christians.
Mercy. Help us, Holy Ghost.
We walk around with people who have no way of getting any help for their needs, and here we are with the source of all power. But we are undercover Christians. And so people pass us all the time who need to know what we have known all along, but we dare not share it with them because it will identify us as Christians. Friends of mine, there are people who are doing many things that are odd, that are strange, that are iconoclastic. Why in the world won't Christians stand up and be counted? Let the redeemed of the Lord say so. Well, if you don't have anything else to believe in, so the people are gathered. There are people who gather there day after day. Someone brings them, and then they take them back. But there are some who don't leave. There are people who come to this place and stay night and day. During the day, the sun scorches. So somebody got ingenious. They said, let's put some shade. Let's create shade. And they put some covering over some of the porches that had been built so that during the day the sun would not scorch people. And then people who came to stay during the night understood that it got cold. So they had blankets and they had their rugs, and they would lie down on them. Not the most comfortable way to sleep, but if you want to be there just in case at daybreak the water should move, then you crawl down to the edge and you want to be there in case it happens at the break of day. Perhaps in the gray of morning it will come. So there are people who are there. There are also people who die there. There is for them no hope anymore. They have waited until their moment comes. The water moves, but there's nobody to pick them up. And so they try their best to get down. They crawl. They use whatever power they have, but they can't get there in time. In fact, there are people who declare that when they thought the water moved, the hundreds of people would be like driven animals, would step over the heads of people who had other illnesses, would trample them under, and perhaps some of the death that occurred at this place happened because somebody was trampled trying to get to the water. That, my friend, is not the way God works. God is a God of decency and order. Even when God moves with large groups, there is order there. But at this pool, you can tell it was sometimes a place without mercy. Well, the Bible says that there were people who came there, but when Jesus passed by, and I love this part of the story, he might have healed everyone there, but the political situation was so tense. And I know some of you think that the Bible is so pretty and it's so delicate. You know, all of your Jesus stories are pretty. Yes, Jesus would always go and heal the people. You don't understand. There were folk around trying to kill Jesus, trying to impugn his character, trying to detract from his credentials. He had not gone to one of the schools of that day. His wisdom came from somewhere, but he spoke with authority. So they knew there was something that backed him up. You and I know that he was not in a regular program. You must understand that these days not everybody goes to an ordinary educational situation. There are some people who are part of distance learning. This is why I love my job. I get to do stuff like this. Jesus was enrolled in a distance learning program. Early in the morning, a great while before day, he would wake up and commune with his father. His father would send down a lesson or two, and he would fulfill the lesson and fill in all the blanks and send it back up so that his education was complete and superior to anything on the face of the earth. It just didn't happen at a normal educational institution. And I do not believe that there is tension between formal education and spiritual education. Let me say it quickly, lest somebody trying to leave this institution blame it on me. So long as you understand that wisdom comes from God, you can get your information from anywhere. In fact, the closer your information comes from divinity, the better it is and the more reliable. It is superior information. But God has no tension against learning. God used people with formal education. The Apostle Paul being a sterling example. He was no less effective because he was trained. His mind was sharp, and God used him in a different way. That doesn't mean he couldn't use somebody who didn't have the opportunity. Remember that information comes from all sources, many sources. Wisdom comes from God. As long as you got that, you got it straight. So now here we are with this situation. Let me tell you what I know. These are things that can be deduced. This man who had been paralyzed for 38 years could not take himself to this pool. Somebody took him.
That's right.
And now the somebody is gone. Are we together so far? This is not written, it can be deduced. He got there, but if he's paralyzed, he couldn't take himself. But by the time Jesus gets there, you remember Jesus says, you want to be made whole? And I catch the words of one of my favorite writers who says that the man looked up and saw that face. That face unlike any other face. Jesus' face was not different because he was too handsome. He had no form or comeliness, Isaiah says, that we might desire him. God might have made Jesus so handsome that every woman would have fallen in love with him, so muscular that every man would have envied him. But his beauty was not from his musculature. It was from what was within. So when that face bent down over that man, it was not that his features were so handsome. It was that there was something of love and power in that face. And when the man saw him, something inside of him leaped. But then he said, no, I've been through this before. So when Jesus says, what do you want me to do for you? Here is his answer. And preachers enjoy ignoring the man's answer. He says, I have no man. Now you knew I was going to take a piece of that. In my travels, and I'm glad that my wife is most often with me because there are different gender groups that approach with separate requests. When a group of young women come, I can almost tell what their quandary might be. I pull my wife close. And sometimes they say the very words that the paralyzed man said. Pastor Pearson, I have no man. What can I tell them? I've had young ladies ask me, when you travel, would you take a picture of me with you? Well, I would end up with a large pocket full of pictures. I'm not sure my wife would be completely in consonance with that plan. So I do not accept pictures. I hope you're forewarned. I have no man. What they're saying is not just that I don't have a man now, but I have had some experiences with men. Let me tell you what this man's real problem is. Do you mind if we cut through the red tape? What the man is saying is this: somebody brought me. At least they were kind enough to bring me here. I don't know who it was. I've done as much research as I can do. I cannot find out who it was who brought him, but whoever brought him might have stayed with him for a while, but eventually they became enchanted with something else, And they left him. So I have an idea how the conversation went. Day after day with no movement of water. Maybe the movement did happen. And they said, come on, we got to go. And he said, yeah, but I said, come on, man. See, look what happened. If you had come when I told you to come, we'd have made it. Now, next time, don't play around. I'm here with you, but I can't coddle you. This is tough love. And when that water moves, I'm going to snatch you next time. I hope you're ready. But after a few snatches, whoever it was who came, could it have been his wife, could it have been a son, they must have said to him, you know something? You know I love you, don't you? But I've been thinking, I think I'll be more help to you, maybe going out and getting a job somewhere. Look right up there, I see people. I believe there are jobs available up near the sheep gate or down here near the sheep pool. I believe that I could go do something that makes more sense than sitting with you every day waiting for this water to move and then trying to get you up. Would you mind? Could I take a couple days and just go check? Well, what's he going to say? He can't force them to stay. So I said, okay, I'll be right back. Hey, I'll be right back. All right. And you know how that goes. I believe that somebody abandoned him. They may have come back once or twice. Maybe they came to check on him, but their visits became few and far between. And eventually this man found himself at the place of healing where the water was supposed to move, but nobody to pick him up and take him over there. And I believe that there are some young ladies who have had the same experience. Their real complaint is not that I have no man, but that I had a few and they abandoned me. Honey, I know a place where I could take you. I have looked at you and I've seen your problem. You know, I can read into your mind. And it's just a gift I got, you know. I'm able to do that. And since I know what your weakness is, and trust me, you are almost perfect, but you do have that one little thing. And I know a place where I could take you where water moves. Could I take you down there? I never heard of it. Don't worry about it. I heard of it. I'll take you there, girl, and I'll stay with you. I'll be there until the water moves. When that water moves, girl, I'm going to grab you. I'm going to run down to that water. I don't believe there's anybody down there by that pool who can move as fast as I can. Before they know it, I'll have you smack dab in the middle of that water, and we're going to come away with a healed woman. Girl, you ready to be healed? Ladies, y'all mighty quiet. and it's okay if he had stayed. But eventually, something caught his eye up by the gate of Jerusalem. He said, hey, you know I told you I was going to stay here with you? And you know I mean that. Don't you know I mean that? But I just saw a friend of mine up there, and I know this man got something going all the time. And I'm going to tell you something. If you give me a few minutes, in fact, maybe like a day and a half with him, I go up there and get a couple things moving. I come back down here and bring you some food and stuff. You know, we ain't got much down here. All we got is like this rug. I bring us back something so we could at least be comfortable while I'm waiting on that water to move. You know about the water. Waiting on that water to move. So let me just, and you know I love you. But right now I got to go. I'm going to be right back. Ladies, you know the whole story, don't you? I have a daughter. We have had deep analytical conversations. It is rare when the brother even makes that phone call he promised. Y'all real quiet. You act like you don't know anything about this. Are you trying to act like you are not the one who knows this stuff? All the other women know, but you have never experienced it? Well, all I'm saying to you is that there are people who would take you places promising healing that they cannot give, And then when it seems like it might happen, they abandon you. And the hurt is not just in the fact that they told you things that were not true, things that were fantastic, things that were too good to be true, and certainly they sounded like they really were. Or maybe it's some man. And brothers, don't you think that there are some sisters who can say that same stuff?
Join us next time for more of Pastor Pearson's message on the Pool of Bethesda.
At the story of Adam and Eve, what I want to say is that if I had seen Eve coming back,
Watch out now.
looking funny, you know, I would want to think, I would say, Eve, what you do? Where you been? You don't look like you did when you left. Where did you go? You haven't been over. You've been over there by that tree. Turn around, let me see you in the light, girl. Now, here's what I would want to think. Eve, you wait right here. I got to go talk to God for a minute. But men are often very susceptible to stories. Sometimes, brethren, we listen to things that women say, acting like we don't have a mirror at home. How you doing? You all buffed up and everything? So when they say that, you go, but I didn't know you noticed that. What you been doing? Pumping iron or something? Well, you know, I don't do it much, but I'm just kind of naturally that way. Some woman will have you all tied up telling you things that have no relationship with truth. And all they're doing is trying to find somebody to go to some little place with them. And then they'll have the nerve to tell you, now, let me ask you something. I hope you don't take this the wrong way. When you get with my friends, many of them are very educated, and some of them come from families where, you know, they treat English like it's some special entry exam, and they can spot any flaw in your syntax. So I hope you don't misunderstand. When we get around them, could I ask you just not to say a lot? No, you could say like, hello. Yeah, that would be okay. But if they ask you any questions about like current events or anything like, you just act like you kind of choked or you sneezing or something. All right? And they tell you, you know something, if you stick with me, I know you haven't had many advantages, but can you tell that I'm on your wavelength? Can you tell what I could do with you if I had the chance? Man, I know places where you could get healed. I know a place where water moves. You want to go with me? Come on, bro. Let me take you on down there. You won't know yourself when you get back. And she's down there with you, too. At least 2 or 3 days. And then after a while, hey, you know something? Can you see that young lady right up there? Went to school with her. You know what? I'd like to just go up there and maybe talk with her. I think I could get up there in like, what, half an hour? Could I run on up there and just kind of say hey to her and come on back? You know I love you. But I just need to go for a minute. I'm going to be right back. And there you are, brother. And don't think it can't happen. And I know brothers are very, very reluctant to admit that it happened to us. So, and not one brother out there is going to give me any love on this point I'm making. You just go ahead and be quiet and understand that we know each other. Happens to the best of us. But you are abandoned. The pain is not that they lied so much. It's that they took you on some strange journey that had no real end. And then when you were there believing, they abandoned you. I believe that there are wives who are abandoned down by the pool. I believe that some man told you what he would do if you would trust in him. told you he'd make you a star. Could you just help me get my degree first? Well, I'm down your street now. And if you help me with mine, girl, as soon as I start raking in that big money, I'm any degree you want. You hear me? Get a double if you want to. You know what I mean? I'll be on that tuition out, whatever you need. Can you go with me on that plan? And as soon as you have put all of your effort and all of your strength into it, then one day he comes home after it's all done and says, you know, I don't want this to come out wrong. I just feel like I've outgrown this situation. You know, and you know, the love we have, I don't think anything can diminish that, but it's just that, how can I say it? The challenge is not still there. And I got some folk that I could go with, and you know, we're not actually breaking up. Don't look at it as a breakup. I just need to go with them for a while. You know, you see what's going on up there? That's what I'm trained to do now. Could I just go up there for a while? You know I love you. I just need to go for a while, and I'll be right back. And brothers, there are some women who will do it to you. All they want is a man to finance the front end of their career, not the whole career. They just need you to supply that degree they didn't pick up. They've already got everyone. All they need is that MRS. Y'all a little slow. You know, I know we don't, you know, we don't see eye to eye on everything. Well, look, we're going to grow together. You understand what I'm saying? We're going to grow together, and in a few years, nobody going to be able to tell what the backgrounds were, because we're just going to be like that. We're going to be inseparable. But then she's gone, and the problem is not just the pain of the lies or the pain of the spent energy. It's that there you are in a place where you expected healing, but instead you have been abandoned. You have nobody. And what the man is saying is this: Jesus, I don't know whoever you are, he doesn't know his name yet. Here you are bending over me. I want to believe, but I don't have anybody. Here he is wanting somebody to take him to water that probably means nothing, when the one who bends over him has the power to snatch away all the variables. Jesus does not take you through the hoops. You don't need anybody to lift you up to bring you to Jesus. Jesus will come where you are.
Yes, sir.
And when he comes, he brings healing with him. So Jesus has not come to say, let me pick you up and take you to the water. Jesus has come to make a very terse declaration. And here it is. He bends over and says, rise, take up your bed, and walk. Let me tell you what happens, and I don't know whether you can get your brain around this or not, because it's too simple. Everybody, when they hear stuff like this, they want long formulae. But when Jesus speaks, it doesn't have to be long and convoluted. He says, rise, take up your bed, and walk. He did not say, now, in a minute, I'm going to say some words to you. When I say them to you, because I am the Son of God in human flesh, I have laid down my power, but I still have the ability to call on my Father above, and he can relay power to me that I can dispense to you. And because I was the creator, and my Father can make me once again have that same creating power, I have the power to bring you back to where you ought to be. Jesus didn't go through all that. If you need that kind of explanation, you don't need Jesus.
That's right. Come on now.
There are some people who are too complicated to get healed by Jesus. All you need to do when Jesus speaks is to believe. Listen, the words of Jesus spoke sudden power into that man's body. Every muscle, every nerve of his body thrilled with the power of the words of Jesus. And all of a sudden, when he looked up in his face, he felt love and power. He felt Jesus breathing the power that was sufficient to get him up. So he did not examine the words. He did not start a feasibility study. He simply believed and obeyed. Now, I've talked to medical professionals who are trained in this thing, and here's what they say. Pastor, if you've been paralyzed for 38 years, it's a nightmare for a physical therapist. It said anybody who's been paralyzed that long, the muscles have atrophied and they've turned inward. In fact, most of them agree that this man was in almost a fetal position, because that's what muscles do that are not used. His knees have pulled up to his abdomen. His arms have folded around each other. His hands, if they move at all, only tremble from time to time. And he looks like an old baby. And there's nothing that can happen for him. Nothing. Most doctors who would look at him would say, no, let's work on somebody else. There's no hope for him. But all Jesus had to do was to go to his bed and say those simple words. And all that man had to do was to seize the power of the words. And all of a sudden, through his body went a charge of power that did more than 10,000 physical therapists could have done in 10 years, because it was Jesus speaking, it was belief taking hold, and it was obedience making the power happen. So a man who can't get up gets up. In fact, there was no stumbling. There was nobody there to help him. Jesus did not reach out and say, let me help you. He had already said the words that could make him walk. In fact, he had the power at that moment not only to walk, but to run, to leap. And I know there's some of you saying, see, that's the reason why I don't believe in the Bible. And that's the reason why you can't get any help.
Yes, sir.
Because you're so smart. You know so much. Let me tell you something. When you come to Jesus, you got to have childlike faith.
Yes,
My wife will tell you that there was a time when I was in a swimming pool. My little boy had no idea about swimming. In fact, I'd had him on my back for the first few hours, and we were having a ball. And I said, son, let me take you over here and put you down so Daddy can swim. And, you know, he sounded like he agreed. He said, okay. And I took him and sat him down by his mom, and I went back out and I started swimming. Well, my wife looked away for just what felt like a second, and evidently he had not understood the direction I gave him, so he got up, came back and jumped in the water. Little bitty guy. Didn't even understand the concept of swimming. The only thing he knew was his daddy was in the water. Oh, you don't understand me, cousin. So he just got in the water, started going up and down, swallowing water with a smile on his face. Because he knew there was no way in the world he could drown in that water while his daddy was in that water. And I thank God that before he went down too many times, I went over and grabbed my little drowning, smiling son. And when I grabbed him, there was no fear in his face. When he finally got all that water out of his mouth, he said, Daddy, Daddy, I came back. The fact is that if you believe, all things are possible.
yes.
What makes me angry is that we've come to a time where nobody believes anymore. Here's what I want to tell you. The people who are in the worst trouble are not the women who have been mistreated by men and abandoned, or the men who've been mistreated by women and abandoned, or even the husbands or the wives. The people who are in the worst trouble are the people who went down there with somebody who wasn't a friend. They followed the devil down there. And don't you tell me the devil doesn't make good offers. You know, I hear people all the time acting like it's stupid to sin. Well, it is, but it's sweet up front. If sin were not sweet for a little while, nobody would sin. Come on, folks. I already knew who you are. You can't come in here fooling me like you're all holy and sanctified and beyond sin. All have sinned and come short of the glory of God. So why don't you go ahead and get real and say you followed him a couple times yourself? Because he does make good offers. You come on. A lot of people got in trouble, but you slick. I can look at you and tell you'll never get in trouble. You too smart to let him catch you. Come on. And here you go. You really think I'm too smart? You're too smart. I can look at you. Look at your face. Look at the shape of your head. You smart. Come on. You know, anybody smart as you, we're going to have some serious good times. And there you go. You're following him. And he takes you and says, where are we going? We're going somewhere where water moves. No. Wait a minute. There's something wrong with what you're saying. See, I read a story like that a long time ago, and I don't think you were in it. Yeah, but see, sometimes you can read that stuff and get confused. What I'm trying to tell you is, I'm going to take you where the water moves. You're going to be healed. And there you go. Well, come on then. Now, what happens when you follow the devil down there? What's going to happen for you? What hope do you have? But the fact is that we find ourselves locked in sin, not because we determined to be sinners. I don't know anybody, even atheists, don't want to be sinners. They don't believe in that whole thing. All they want to do is enjoy self-determination. Nobody wants to be a sinner, but you follow him down there. And when he gets you down there, it's kind of different with him, because when he turns on you, it's ugly. Hey, let me ask you something. How you enjoying yourself down here? People been trampling over your head. Folks been stepping on your back. I was checking you out the other day, about 24 people rolled over your back. Were you thinking while they were stepping on you that I had lied to you? So it dawned on you that I didn't tell you exactly the truth, did it? Did a bell ring in the back of your head? Did you think you might not have been as smart as I told you were? And here you are down here with me. And guess what? You're right. I'm not in this story. This is not a story that I can control. And since you're down here with me, I can tell you that your plight is practically without hope. I'm just here to remind you that even when you follow the arch deceiver down to a place that doesn't really have a healing power, the one who will come and get you is still Jesus. I came from an academy that is well known in some circles, and I had gotten my learner's permit, but had not fully gotten my driver's license. But I had a friend with me who shall be nameless. All of you would know him, but I can't name him. We've got that agreement. We got home, and I said, Dad, let me borrow the car. He said, got your license? Yeah. All right. So, you know, car wasn't much, but it was all we had. I took it out. We were talking as we pulled out of the driveway. Where you want to go and what you want to do? We're going to tear this little old town. Ah! Y'all didn't think new preachers talk like that? I was in college. I was allowed. We're going to have some fun. The weather was a little funny. It was misty, gray. You could barely see 3 car lengths in front of you. But that's all right. We had the car. We were all dressed up, had on them little funny hats. Way back in those days, the most attractive hat a man could wear was called a stingy brim.
Told me about it.
Got some old men in here now. I can feel you. We had them on, little brim, but as we came up to a blinking light, it was blinking yellow towards us. I guess it was blinking red the other way, and you're supposed to slow down, but hey, 2 young men on the way to town to paint it colors. So I hit the gas. It was a car that you don't even know anymore. It was called a Rambler. It had under its hood a trusty, take that back. It had under its hood a 6-cylinder engine that made a sound when the accelerator was fully depressed. Almost nothing happened. Came to the blinking yellow, hit the gas. I looked out of my peripheral vision and saw a truck coming as fast as it could come, but there was not enough power in that car to get it out of the way, and the truck hit the Rambler and sent it round and round and round, and I don't know how many times it went round, but when it landed in front of a grocery store, the rear end inside the store. I'm sitting there in Alabama with a learner's permit and no licensed driver sitting next to me. The two elderly people did not have the same suntan that I have. I'm just waiting on you. Presently, there was a sheriff. It's the quintessential Southern sheriff. He's got a pot belly. He's got a big LBJ Stetson hat. He's chewing on the nub of a cigar, and he comes out and says, "Boy, you're in a heap of trouble." As though I didn't already know. The person who was with me said, "Let me switch with you." I said, "No, man, I'm in enough trouble. This is the end of this stuff. No more lies, no more prevarication. We got to get out of this." I ran over to the payphone. There were no cell phones then, and I called, of all people, my dad. The same man I just lied to and taken his car and wrecked it. It was inside a store. And here I am getting ready to ask my dad to come help me. And I said, "Dad, I got a problem." I said, the car's wrecked. Two old people say their backs are hurting. There's a store owner who says, "I got to fix everything that's wrong with his store." And incidentally, when I told you this morning I had a license, I had a learner's permit. Now that's the point where your father ought to tell you off. But a real father knows that you already got enough trouble. He said, "Son, just stay right there. I gotta get a ride. I'm in the only car the family's got." My father came. It's a long story. Here's the short side of it. Dad went in and said, I'm a contractor. I will make your store look better than it did before my son came into your doors. Went over to the people who were in the truck, said, "Would you please, can you get to a hospital? If you can, here's my card. I will pay every cent of your medical bill." Went over to the sheriff, and this was the hard sell. He said, "Sir, do you have a son?" I saw that cigar slack in his mouth and drop. I said, "There is a God." Dad said, "If you got a son, you understand how I feel today. My boy ought to be a preacher, but this day could ruin it for him. I need your help to save my boy and let him do what God has called him to do. Will you work with me?" And a Southern sheriff pulled off his reflective glasses and said, "I feel your pain, and I'm going to work with you. And I stand here today because of a father." Let me tell you what I want to say to you. Every one of us is down by the pool. Every one of us has been abandoned. Somebody lied to us. Maybe we lied to ourselves, and here we are with nobody to help. And I tell you that if everybody else has abandoned you, the best news you can hear right now is that there is one who will never, 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 never leave you. In fact, the thing that I want to make as clear as God will help me make it during this week that is way too short is that it doesn't make any difference what brought you to the pool. Doesn't make any difference who brought you down here, and it doesn't make any difference how soon they abandoned you. Everybody gets abandoned eventually. because nobody stays with you. You can't trust anybody else when your mother and your father forsake you. Jesus will take you up. And so I want to say to you tonight that no matter what stuff you've done, no matter what baggage you carry, no matter how many people you've lied to, maybe you've lied to the very people who you need to help. And the fact is that every one of us has lied to Jesus. And the miracle is that he knew you would lie before you lied, knew your lie while you were telling it, and loved you through it. And even now, after you've lied yourself into a corner that you think is inescapable, tonight, Jesus bends over your bed and says, can I do anything for you? What do you need? And what you ought to say is, you can't help me. I've lied to you. How could you help me when you are the one who I've hurt the most? But Jesus is not about to listen to your story. He came to seek and to save the lost. So tonight, he will bend over your bed and say, rise. Take up your bed and walk. If you can believe him, if you can obey him, you will not shudder, you will not shake, you will not fall. You will stand in the power of Christ, and you will walk in his name. God bless you.
Join us next time for more Breath of Life with Pastor Walter L. Pearson, Jr.
Walter Pearson believes that Jesus Christ is the answer to every problem you face.